to Passions Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the soap opera Passions. I'm your regular host, LeTara, here today with a brand new guest all the way from the UK. Can y'all even fucking believe it?
International
Welcome.
edition. Hello,
Yes,
everyone.
welcome, Lisa.
I'm here, finally.
You're finally here. You've made it. And I'm so
Long time
excited.
ambition. Thank
I'm
you
so
for
ex-
having me.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. Lisa's one of our patrons over on Patreon, and she comes to like every watch party. So I really appreciate you. And we always have a good time in the watch parties talking
We
about
have so
the
much
show.
fun. I stay up to an extreme hour just to attend the watch
She
parties.
does. It's crazy. The time difference is what, 5 hours, right?
5 hours. We had a treat a few weeks ago where it was 4 hours, but for most of the year, 5 hour time difference. But
5
so
hours.
worth it.
Yeah. So it's 2:00 where I am now, but it's 7:00 where she is. So it's like, we
made it
all
work.
good. We're gonna make it work, and I'm so glad to have you here. But before we get into the episodes, we're talking about episodes 571 through 575. Sound good? Sound right to you?
We are. Yeah.
All right.
Is that your moment where you're like, please agree?
Every time. I do it every time. Who was it? I think it might have been
Maria?
Yeah, I think it was Maria. She's like, why do you always ask that? I'm like, because
just to check.
There's been times where it's been a little bit wonky and I had to fix it. Okay, so let me say a quick shout out to all of our patrons over on Patreon. Thank you to Munashe, Marcus, Brelin, Lisa here in the States, Sid, Sarana, Randall, Hannah, Camellia, Samantha, Jeanette, Eric, Fantasia, Sean S., Larissa, Maria, Greg Lopez Fitzgerald, our Lisa that is here with us today, Jessica Jean, Laura, Thomas, and Karen. Thank you all so much for being patrons. I really love and appreciate all of the support. And you, again, I will say you are the reason this show is still going. And I plan on going to, not infinity until the show's over. Also, speaking of which, I've been watching clips of Days of Our Lives on TikTok. Like TikTok is like, it's trying to get me to watch Days of Our Lives again. And part of me wants to go back to the year I was born, which is 1988 for anybody who cares, and start the Days of Our Lives from there, because I realized the clips that I was watching was from like 1994. And I was like, wait a minute, I remember this storyline. Like I was watching that and I want to go back and see how we got to that point. But none of that's important because this show's not about Days of Our Lives. This show's about Passions. So, but anyway, yeah, I might watch Days of Our Lives and maybe I'll do a podcast about that once this is
on
over.
Peacock. We're doing Sunset Beach next. I'm going to hold you to that.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's right. You loved Sunset Beach. Does anybody, I know y'all can't respond to me right now, but write in, leave a comment
Email.
if you remember. Yes, send an email, which Lisa was the one who pointed out that the email wasn't on the link tree, which it is now. Thank you, Lisa. But yeah, did you watch Sunset Beach? I watched some Sunset Beach, but I don't remember any of it.
Yeah, that was how I got into soap operas. Teenage Lisa got a taste of the glitz and glamour of Sunset Beach, and that was my induction into this world.
Actually, yeah, tell us about your like origin story. Like, how'd you get into Passions?
Okay, so Teenage Lisa was a fan of Sunset Beach. That was very short-lived. It got axed after 3 years. I was aware of Passions because Sunset Beach and Passions were always the lowest two ranked soaps. So I was praying that they were going to cancel Passions instead of Sunset Beach. My wish was not granted. Years later, I thought, let's see what this is all about. And then I realized, actually, I'm pretty glad we got nearly 10 years of Passions as well.
Wow, so you were rooting for Sunset Beach over Passions.
All the way.
That's fair. Passions was kind of a mess at the beginning.
As was Sunset Beach. You'd probably like it. It was wacky, not as wacky as Passions, of course.
Is it on YouTube?
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I will do. Maybe we will watch Sunset Beach.
After when
I get some time. I just started a new job.
How is
now
it going?
I have like less time. It's fine. It's fine.
It's a job.
I need the money, so you know.
We're not all heiresses, are we? We're
not all
nice manicures,
beautiful manicures. They talk about they find Sheridan, which we're gonna get there very soon.
We better start talking about Passions.
What's going on with Sheridan? Because my God, these people who have found Sheridan. But
wow,
let's pick up in Bermuda since we're talking about Sheridan. Let's talk about what's going on in Bermuda. We're gonna start with what's going on with our main group, and then we'll get to where Sheridan is and what's going on with her, because it's ridiculous. Okay, so after Sheridan's funeral, everybody, we pick up following Sheridan's funeral. Rebecca is pressuring Julian to marry her right here, right now, this moment. We're getting married. She's in her wedding dress, as we all know. Julian,
Is that the wedding march I hear? She says.
like, she, in her mind, in her head.
No, she says it out loud straight after the funeral.
No, I was saying,
is that
she
the wedding
hears
march
it.
I hear?
She hears the wedding march in her head because she's
I believe she hears
crazy.
it.
Yeah, she's pressuring Julian to marry her. Julian is resisting. He says it's because how would it look, which makes sense. How would it look for us to get married right after I bury my sister or cremate my sister and have this whole funeral? So optically it would look bad. She's not buying it. She's like, yeah, but you're the one who killed her, so
Everyone hates you anyway. Since when have you cared what the public think of you, Julian?
That's exactly what she says. And then she renews her threat to expose what he did to Sheridan, unless he marries her today. So he starts sweating bullets, of course. She goes off to go and find the justice of the peace or go to the chapel, something. Meanwhile, Theresa is like freaking out. And y'all, the whole week, Teresa's like freaking out about this secret coming out. And Whitney has had like this weird change of heart that I don't understand.
I noted that she was being be honest. Ethan can never find out now, according to Whitney.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. So every time we see the two of them now, Teresa's like freaking out. Whitney's just kind of rubbing it in that she married Julian. She's like, yeah,
it's the worst thing you've ever done.
This is the worst thing you've ever done. I can't believe you did this. Ethan can never find out. If he does, he and Luis both are going to kill Julian, and then they'll both spend the rest of their lives in jail. Like, that's
Ethan would never forgive you.
Even though, yeah, she says Ethan might forgive the marriage, but he won't forgive the fact that you slept with him. But even though just a week ago, 2 weeks ago maybe, we saw that the contrary of that Ethan thought that
he got you drunk. He'd understand.
Yes. He fully understood. Well, and also Ethan thought that was what had happened to Theresa when she was like incapacitated in bed and the doctor had given her a sedative. He didn't blame her. Yeah. He thought that Julian had taken advantage of her, and he didn't blame her at all. So it's just weird, this turnaround that the writers have written for Whitney. I don't care for it.
It annoys me when they change characters' opinions just to push the storyline the way they want it to go. I don't like it
just
either.
to fit their narrative. It's like, but you wrote this in the first place. You wrote this character like this in the first place. Why would you change it? And not even that long off. It's only been 2 weeks, 1 week since Whitney was saying, yes, you need to tell him the truth. She was trying to get her to tell him the whole truth.
And we both noticed it. So it wasn't a subtle change. It was a big U-turn.
Huge. So that's basically what's going on with the two of them a lot through this week. Chad Chad is trying to cheer up Luis.
It was so sweet.
It was very sweet, but it also was like, at one point he was like, yeah, man, I thought having no parents was the worst thing in the world. Oh my God. I was like, this is not. He was like, now I see losing somebody you love is a lot worse. It's like, this is not the way to cheer up Luis.
Yeah.
This is not the way to cheer up Luis.
It was an odd comparison.
That's going on. Also, what's going on, and I'm just trying to hit like what's going on because it is kind of all over the place.
You're doing well.
The justice of the peace.
It's suddenly become ethical.
I don't get this guy at all. He tells Bruce, which for those of you who might not remember, Bruce is one of not Luis, the opposite of Luis, Julian. One of Julian's lecherous friends. And so Bruce has kind of been tailing the justice of the peace to make sure he stays on track and does the things that Julian wants him to do. But the justice is telling Bruce he wants to expose the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help him God. And Bruce is like reasoning with him. We do this a lot throughout the week. So just know
attacks of conscience. Yeah.
Yeah, he keeps, I have to tell someone. I have to expose the truth. Why? Why do you have to
Even though I've been
expose the truth?
bribed, I need to tell the truth.
Yeah, you already took the money, bro. Like, just do what you were gonna do. So, um, they at one point are all talking. Chad's talking to like Ethan, Theresa, and Whitney, and he's talking about how messed up it is that Rebecca came to Sheridan's funeral in a wedding gown, and Ethan is like, "Well, I kind of understand where she's coming from." Huh? What?
Don't
Excuse
get me
me?
started on Ethan
He's
this
like,
week.
go for it. He says, because I mean, Ethan is getting better, but he's still just such a dunce.
One step
Like,
forward, two steps back with
yeah.
Ethan.
Because what do you mean you understand where she's coming from? He says that he understands that she wants to get married to Julian immediately because because she loves him, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like, do you really think she loves him? Where's this
Yeah,
sharp legal mind? It's kind of obvious that
legal
it's not true
eagle.
love. Yeah.
And then he turns to Theresa and tells her he wants to marry her tonight too. Like, we just
Yeah.
cremated Sheridan,
Would you be
your
in the mood?
your aunt, who you said you loved. And I know everybody on this show keeps saying Sheridan, it's what Sheridan would want. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. I just
Regardless
do
of
not.
what she would want, you've just buried they're not blood related, we know, but he still loves Sheridan. You're just not going to be in the mood to get married and celebrate. And
Yeah, why would you want your anniversary to be the
yeah,
same day that you cremated your aunt?
you would always think of that day every time you remembered your wedding.
Every single time. I would need to put some distance between me and this day. And especially you just went through like this horrific event with the hurricane and all of this. No, no, but Ethan wants to get married right away.
Nothing will stop Ethan from wanting to get married on this day. Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. It's crazy. Theresa says it wouldn't be right. What about Sheridan? What about Louise? Louise then steps in and he's like, this is what Sheridan would want. She would want you guys to go ahead and get married. He's like, you need to seize the moment and don't waste any time. I'm going to regret for the rest of my life that I didn't marry
He said he'd
Sheridan.
never forgive himself for not marrying Sheridan, but it wasn't really his fault. They didn't get married. I think he's been a bit harsh on himself.
Yeah, he's not in his right
No.
mind, and understandably so. He's not in his right mind. Don't listen to him. Don't take his
Yeah, he's
advice.
overwhelmed with grief and he's not being rational.
Yeah, he's not being rational, but Ethan takes this and runs with it. But then Julian interrupts and says he needs to speak with Theresa. This man is
Because she's Ivy's assistant.
he's cruising for a bruising. Cause he's like, yeah, I need to talk to Theresa. And both Ethan and Louise are like, why? What do you need to talk to Theresa for? And he's like, well, she's Ivy's personal assistant and she has some personal effects or information that I need. What information could that be? You
that
and
would
Ivy are
not be
divorced
breaching
now.
Ivy's confidentiality.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
two of them are officially divorced now. So what could you possibly need from Ivy? There's no proceedings to do. It just doesn't make any sense. But Theresa tells the guys, it's okay. I'll talk to him. They go over, they talk. He tries to get her to leave with him.
He's still going for it.
He's like, why don't we just go try and make our marriage work? We can get away from here right now.
No one will need to see us again.
Yeah. I don't know. But of course this was good on Whitney. Whitney steps in because Julian is saying, yeah, you and I are married after all, even though I don't remember our wedding night.
He said it was a wonderful night, even though I don't remember it. How do you know it was wonderful, Julian?
Exactly. And then Whitney steps in and tells him, shut the fuck up. You need to get this marriage annulled right away, like you said you would. By the way, everybody in Harmony hates you. So if they found out that you did this to Theresa, not Luis and Ethan aren't the only people who are gonna tear you apart. I'll go and call my dad right now. It's just like, I'm gonna call Dad and Chief Bennett, and they would jump at the chance to rip you to pieces. She literally says everyone in Harmony hates you.
And she called him disgusting, which I loved too.
I loved it.
He's so disgusting.
He is so just nasty. So Julian again floats the idea of giving their marriage a shot and running away together. Of course, Theresa is repulsed, utterly repulsed by this. She's just like, get this marriage annulled
And he's like,
right
oh,
now.
worth a try.
Yeah. Exactly. Was it worth a try? It's like, was it worth a try, Julian? Was it worth a try?
So delusional.
He says his plan is to now go and marry Rebecca to get her off of his back, and he has basically bribed the justice of the peace, so he's off to go marry Rebecca. Then Ethan grabs Theresa and he does the Aladdin thing. Do you trust me? Y'all remember that from Aladdin? Do you trust me? And she's like, yes. He's like, well, just trust me. And he grabs her. She's like, where are we going? Girl, you know where y'all going. They went to the chapel.
She
Go
didn't see it
into
coming.
the chapel.
We saw it coming.
Of course. This man has been trying his damnedest since since the moment he landed to get you to this chapel and get you married to him, get y'all hitched. So
it's like a big baby. He's not taking his fiance's wishes into account at all. And he says he loves her so much. If you love her, listen to her, give her the wedding she wants and dreams of, Ethan.
And deserves, you know. I just the fact that Pilar is not there would be enough for me to say, you know what, I understand why you don't want to get married right now. Like, I get it. Because Pilar's also so religious. She would want to see happy. Yeah, she would want to see her daughter be married by a priest in their church.
In a church.
Yeah. So, and I know that's very important to all of them, but not to Ethan, because he grew up with with demons who don't care about that kind of stuff, I guess. But yeah, so he grabs her, takes her to the chapel. She's like, what are we doing here? Girl, what do you think we're doing here? What do you think we're doing here?
Double wedding.
Oh my God, y'all. Ethan is the worst. He's not the worst. But yes, that's exactly what happens. He goes in.
He's got spoiled crane vibes still. I want it my way to do what I want to do now, and that's what's happening.
Exactly. They get to the chapel, and Julian and Rebecca are starting their ceremony. And so they've already begun their ceremony. He interrupts their wedding ceremony to be like, hey guys, I was hoping that you would share your ceremony with us and we could get married together. Why would you want to get married with Julian and Rebecca of all people? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Not only are you having
they're both horrible. Yeah. We know they're both horrible now.
Not only are you having your wedding day on Sheridan's funeral day, now you're having a double wedding with the man you thought was your father who kicked you out of his house, basically, and wouldn't have you back, and the woman who tried to send your fiance, the woman you love, to the other side of the world.
But not your mom, who loves you more than life, who would go ballistic if she found out Ethan had got married without her being there, or your future bride's mum, who's also super religious, who would also go ballistic.
Yeah, this whole thing is a disaster. And it spells out disaster. Like, I wouldn't want to start my marriage out that way. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, nope. Rebecca agrees, which, again, it doesn't make any sense for Rebecca to agree to get married. And Gwen brings this up at one point. So Rebecca agrees. They start this ceremony. Doesn't care.
She's like, whatever. Yeah. As long as I get to marry my Pookie, I'm not bothered.
That's pretty much exactly what she says. As long as we get this done right now, everybody in here can get married for all the fuck I care. Yeah. Like, it can be everybody. So, but again, it doesn't make sense for Rebecca to do that. But she does.
She tries to explain it to Gwen, though. Once I'm Mrs. Crane, I can make anything happen, including getting Ethan for you. Who knows how? But
it doesn't make sense. Because, okay, Theresa says she doesn't want to intrude on the wedding, but of course, they all end up in the ceremony. So the ceremony starts again, and Theresa stops the wedding again to ask Rebecca, Are you sure you want to get married like this?
I don't mind.
And Rebecca says, no, I don't mind. Yeah, sure. Fine, let's just do this thing. And that's when Gwen pulls her out, like, Mother, can I speak to you, please? And she says, like, what the hell, Mom? Like, why you had the perfect opportunity to stop Ethan from marrying Theresa, which is absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
I still want to marry Ethan one day.
Yeah.
Poor Gwen. She needs to move on.
Yeah, I can't be too. Everybody knows I
It's
can't be too
embarrassing.
sympathetic when it comes to Gwen. It is very embarrassing. It is pathetic. She can do better. Is the thing. The thing
Yeah,
is,
she can find someone that actually wants to be with her.
I don't hate Gwen. I just hate that Gwen is continuing with this nonsense, and it's not in any way beneficial to her.
It's hard to watch.
It's in no way beneficial to her. So she Rebecca tells her, "Oh honey, I'm gonna marry Julian, and once I'm Mrs. Julian Crane, you'll be able to get whatever you want, including Ethan." How if he's married to Theresa?
Yeah, it's going to make it less easy to achieve, but
And
okay, Becky.
we've already established that Ethan is the type of man that once he gets married, at least according to Gwen, that once he gets married, he will never be divorced. He's going to stick by his wife no matter what. Kind of like Sam, right? So, yeah, it just Rebecca's only looking out for number one. That's so obvious. Yeah. And the fact that Gwen continues to like listen to her mom after this is wild to me. Crazy.
Yeah. Gwen's well-being would be secondary after Rebecca's got all her own needs met. Then she might try and help Gwen, but it's not the number one priority at this moment in time.
No, and I don't understand how Rebecca would be able to help once Ethan is married to Theresa beyond, I guess, breaking them up. But all right, so the ceremony starts again.
For the umpteenth time.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 times.
Which made me giggle.
Yeah, the umpteenth. Yeah, they do say the umpteenth time. So they're getting ready to get married, and then Theresa stops the ceremony and says, "What about Luis? I can't get married without Luis."
Where's Luis?
So then Chad goes to get Luis, and Luis comes in. He's like, "Oh, I'm glad you took my advice." Poor guy. He's so out of it. Oh, God, I feel... And that's another thing. Why would you have I would never force my brother to, like, come to my wedding on the day of his, fiance's funeral.
Rubbing sea salt into the wound there.
And it's not even like Sheridan's been dead that long. Like, they had her funeral the day she died. So...
And it's, the same day.
It's all so fresh. Yeah, this is like the day Sheridan died. It's not just the day of her funeral. And y'all gonna have a wedding? Okay, whatever.
Where's the tact?
It doesn't make any sense. It's so stupid.
So
he gets there and we start the wedding again. And then we get interrupted by a staff member who runs in and interrupts and says, "Ivy Crane has been struck by lightning." Rebecca's like, "What the fuck does that have to do with us and getting married?" She's like, if anybody deserves to get struck by lightning, it's Ivy.
She's like, I don't agree. Come on, Poopy.
Yeah. The guy says, Ivy Crane's been struck by lightning. And Rebecca's like, yes, and?
And yes? He's like, she might not even make it through the night.
Yeah. She doesn't care. And
that's cold.
And of course, this stops the wedding at least for Ethan and Theresa. And then Julian is like, yeah, well, it would look really... How bad would it look that we're getting married while Ivy's on her deathbed?
I wrote down what he said, actually.
Yeah.
It's just the timing. I can see the society pages. Sheridan dead, Rebecca in Julian's bed. So he came up with a rhyming headline. And then Rebecca came up with a different headline. She's like, I beg to differ. This was her headline. Julian Crane has sister killed. Rebecca is the prosecution's star witness. And I was like, your headline didn't even rhyme. It's not as good as Julian's.
It's not. It's
so
not,
she's back with another threat.
But it's certainly effective. That's for sure. Thank you for that, because I didn't write that down at all, but that's perfect. Yeah, he says he can see the tabloids now. It just is not... the timing is bad. Optically, it looks bad. So they put the wedding plans on hold. And then this was the dumbest... I don't know if it's the dumbest thing that's ever happened on Passions, but I feel like it's up there with the dumbest things that ever happened. The justice of the peace is now off the hook entirely, right? He doesn't have... He now does not have to, like, commit a crime and marry these people who are already married. But instead of just taking the win, he decides he wants to expose the whole thing and tells Bruce, I have to do something. I have to go get the wedding pictures to prove that Julian and Theresa are already married.
That is such a good point.
Why? You got the money, you've been bribed, you got the money, and you didn't have to do anything unethical. Like, it's
Thank
done.
you, lucky stars. Move on.
Yes,
Keep going
move
about your cushy number in Bermuda, as Bruce calls it.
I couldn't for the life of me figure out why this man had not disappeared in all of the time that when they were trying to figure out like how to get married and who's getting married and when and where, and you know, all the confusion after the funeral.
Such a good point.
Sick. I'm sick. I had to go home sick. How easy would that be? I have explosive diarrhea. I can't marry you today.
He said he was tired, didn't he? He said the storm had taken it out of him and he was tired.
Just be sick. I don't get it. So this man decides, no, like you said, having a crisis of conscience. And he's like, I have to expose the truth. Bruce follows him, ties him up, gags him, and puts him in a closet. So everybody's gonna leave, but then Rebecca's like, oh, we have just enough time to get married because they have to fuel up the jet, and so it's gonna take a while.
We might as well just get married.
But I think it's Whitney that points out, oh well, the justice of the peace has gone missing, so they all go searching for him. Theresa pretends to look for him and finds him, which is like, of course, that's your luck. It's fate. That's her
because she's
fate.
looking in the closet where you wouldn't really imagine a justice of the peace to be, but of course, Bruce has sorted it out.
There he is in the closet, bound and gagged.
I don't understand Bruce. One minute he's like laughing at all the trouble Julian's in. Now he's committing a crime to try and help him. I do not understand Bruce.
He does say later on that he felt bad because he had so much fun at Julian's expense and they are friends. So he was looking out for, he was just looking out for him at that point. Because, yeah,
but extra mile.
Yeah, that really is. But I think, honestly, he probably enjoyed it. He's a weirdo. He seems like a weirdo.
He said he had a twisted sense of humor, I think, himself.
Yeah, I think he probably really enjoyed tying that guy up and gagging him with that. Yeah. Anyway, so Theresa finds him in the closet and she's like, oh, and Rebecca comes and is like, what is it? What's there? And so she closes the closet and she's like, oh, it's nothing. And Rebecca tries to get to the closet, but they're like trying to keep her from it. It's Theresa and Whitney trying to keep her from the closet. And Bruce elsewhere tells Julian that, hey, buddy, don't worry. I got the justice of the peace all tied up, gagged and bound in a closet. Nobody would even think to look in there. And so they're walking down the hallway and he sees that Rebecca's trying to go in the closet and he stops her and says, oh, darling, you don't want to go in there because I've just been told by the resort staff that the hurricane has made the resort be overrun with rats and that closet is full of rats.
Has upset the ecosystem. It's been disrupted and there are huge rats all over the hotel. That's the story.
And she buys it.
Yeah, because she must be as scared as rats.
Yeah, she must be scared of the rats. Like, I mean, she's
scared of mice.
She screams, she jumps, she's like, oh my goodness, Pookie, you really do love me. All of a sudden, this like takes away all of her worries. He's like, yes, and we will get married as soon as we get back to harmony.
He's been so over the top nice to her.
And so she starts to, because she's been very suspicious that something is going on with Julian and that he's trying to get out of marrying her. But this kind of puts her mind at ease. She says as much to Gwen. So he promises he'll marry her when they get back. She now feels a little bit more at ease. And that's that for them right now.
She's pretending to be all loved up with him again, which I don't get. She's just been blackmailing him. And then she's like, oh, you do love me. And it's like,
you know, these two people, Rebecca and Julian, are actually perfect for each other. Yeah. They love in the same way.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely, love is conditional. And I think they both have the most, outside of this recent treachery with Julian marrying Theresa, they have like the most honest relationship on the show as far as like knowing who each other are. Like they've seen the worst of each other, you know? and they show each other the worst of each other. You know, they're not hiding that they're horrible villains. They're villains together, and they are a lot
Julian's just
alike.
hiding the little tramp or tartlet or whatever you want to call it that he was with on the island.
Right. And truthfully, Rebecca knows and understands that. And
She doesn't mind. It's less work for her.
Exactly. She actually doesn't care about that as long as she can be the wife, right?
As long as he doesn't embarrass her too much. Yeah.
Right. And as long as nobody else gets to be Mrs. Julian Crane, she's pretty much cool. So even that
she wants to be the
portion of it,
second Mrs. Julian Crane, as she says ad nauseum.
it's too late for that. It's too late for that. Teresa's
I
got
just
that
thought if I
title.
was marrying someone who had been divorced, I would never be saying I am going to be the second Mrs. So I would not be saying that. I'd be like, I can't wait to marry you.
Yeah, the second Mrs. Julian Crane.
She's
that
so
is
proud.
a weird thing to say. She's so proud to be the second wife. But you know what? That also speaks to like how much she hates Ivy. I feel like she wants to make it clear that she now has Ivy's husband. I think it's also about being able to say like, because she was Ivy's rival, she's now kicked Ivy out of the number one spot. You know what I mean?
Which is why she's stressing the second, which just works really well for the gag that Theresa is really the second Mrs. Crane.
Yeah.
As Tabby foretold.
Yeah. So, let me see. Where are we? They see Gwen talking. I don't care. Okay, yes.
We're waiting for the jet to be fueled, are we?
Yeah. We're all waiting for the jet to be fueled. Meanwhile...
Oh, we're looking for Justice, the rats, yeah.
Yeah, we did all that. Now it's like Gwen's talking to Ethan. She's like trying to ingratiate herself to him a little bit. And at one point,
you can still always talk to me, Ethan.
Yeah. And talking about Ivy because he's worried about his mom, of course. And he says, you know, should I even be trying to get married when my mom's been struck by lightning? Yeah, because why are you still looking for the justice of the peace? Your mom was struck by lightning and had a horrible fall. Your aunt died today and we had her funeral. Why would you want to still get married on this day? This day is bad luck, if anything. You know, at the very least, it's a bad luck day. It's bad juju.
I've never agreed with Ethan more. It was like he was pointing out the whole ridiculousness of still trying to get married after he found out his mum had been struck by lightning and may not make it through the night.
Yeah. So I'm glad we finally get past this whole we're gonna get married tonight. Everybody realizes nobody's getting married tonight.
Tonight is not the night.
We are now past this whole double wedding night. Like, thank God. And everybody gets on the plane. Louise had original...
Julian's kicked everyone off because the Cranes own airlines, apparently. So they've kicked everyone off the plane and they are now just traveling back to Harmony.
Yeah, they are taking a commercial flight, but they just are doing it just this group. Yeah, because Julian owns the plane. Or owns the airline entirely. So, yes. Everybody boards the flight. Originally, Louise had said that he wanted to stay behind because this was the last place he was ever with Sheridan. It was all very sad, but he finally boards the plane after and we'll talk more about it, but after having an experience where he thought Sheridan was alive again, and then he realized, you know what, she's dead. I should go on home. It's time for me to go home. So he boards the plane with everybody else, and they all head back to Harmony. So before we talk about what happens in Harmony, we need to talk about what happens with Sheridan and Louise and stuff in Bermuda before they go back to Harmony. So while in Bermuda, Louise is talking very regretfully to Sheridan's urn, for 3 episodes this week. That's his acting partner, is her urn, and he is really sad. He's like, you're gone, you're really gone. I have to accept it, but I don't know how. And like I said, he plans to stay in Bermuda a little longer because it's the last place that he was with Sheridan and where they were happiest. He said he just can't stand the idea of going home without her. It was all really, really sad. It was really sad.
It was.
Meanwhile, assisted by Charity and Grace's power prayer.
Their prayer.
Their power prayer. Sheridan is pulled from the ocean in some fisherman's net. And we meet Brian, everybody.
Brian, what's his name? Brian O'Leary? It's an Irish name.
Brian O'Leary. Yeah. I'm already sick of this fucking guy. I'm already over him.
They're trying to make us think he's such a good guy repeatedly. It's a little bit grating.
It is. They're trying to. I don't care for it. So I'll just say my piece. These fishermen pull Sheridan from the ocean in their net, and she's barely alive. Brian starts to perform CPR on her, brings her back, and they get like a pulse. They take her like to a cabin and lay her down, put some blankets over her, and he goes up to talk to the captain, to tell the captain, we found a lady in the nets. We need to take her back to shore. Y'all, this was wild, and it not only was it wild, but it was wildly unnecessary. But it was
so many questions.
Like Lisa just said, they were trying very hard to make us believe that Brian is like this super good guy. He's a hero.
How can I undress you without putting you in a compromising situation?
He says
pretty
that
lady.
to Sheridan, pretty lady. You pretty lady. And then he starts calling her Angel. Whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty for half the week, and then it turns to Angel.
She's an angel. So anyway, he goes up to talk to the captain and let him know, we found this half dead lady in the ocean. We obviously have to take her back to shore. Well, the captain is like, hell no, I have a quota to meet, and if I don't meet my quota, I could lose my boat. And Brian's like, well, if we don't take her back to shore,
chuck her back in.
Yeah, that's what he says. Brian says, if we don't take her back to shore, she could lose her life. And the captain's like, if I have to choose between some woman and my boat, I'm choosing my boat every time. Toss her overboard.
There's a huge shoal of fish in the opposite direction, isn't there, that the captain is more interested in. He's a murderous captain.
Toss her overboard. Okay, Bluebeard. I
shouldn't say Liz.
He's like, make her walk the plank. Like, what are we doing? And so he tells him that literally, I did not make that up. He says, toss her overboard. Brian then accuses the captain of being drunk. He says, you're two sheets to the wind, because he says that he saw like a giant shoal of fish in the opposite direction, like you said. And Brian's like, how, where, when? You're drunk. There's no way you saw that. And it's dark.
And even if you did, there's an emergency. We're going to have to leave the fish for another day.
It's a human woman. A human woman. All you have to do is go and drop her off, and you can go back out. It's late anyway. Just go home. Why are we still out here? So Brian accuses him of being drunk and too drunk to make good decisions. The captain then pulls out a big, like a huge knife. It's like that knife. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
No, I'm too squeamish.
Oh yeah, don't watch it if you're squeamish. There's a scene where I'm gonna for the people who watch Game of Thrones, it looks similar to the Valerian steel knife that the assassin tries to kill Bran with when he breaks his legs. People who watch Game of Thrones will know what I'm talking about.
I've heard
the knife
fantastic things.
The knife that turns out to be Littlefinger's knife. It looks like that knife. Okay, so anyway, he pulls out this giant knife. It's shiny.
Where did it come from? Yeah,
he pulled it from his waistband. It's like, you just keep a giant knife in your waist. I mean,
maybe
I guess
forgotten fish.
Yeah, I guess they're fishermen, so I guess they maybe forgotten fish. I guess, but I've never seen. I fish and my dad fishes. We've never used like those kinds of knives, but anyway.
And they're a commercial. They're not like eating the fish they've just caught for dinner. Or maybe they are. Who knows how long they're out looking for this giant shoal of fish?
Yeah, especially according to this captain, he's not keeping up with his quotas, so maybe they spend lots and lots of time on the water. He's a terrible fisherman. So he pulls a knife on Brian, and he accuses him of committing a willful act of mutiny. He's like, you're a mutineer, and I'm a captain is allowed to protect his boat. And Brian eventually disarms him. They fight. He disarms him. And Brian wins out and tells the captain, turn this boat around now and take us back to shore. And so the captain acquiesces.
I was disappointed that the other crew member did not go to help Brian. He was just with Sheridan listening to the fight.
Yes, he was downstairs listening to, and he was like, yeah, give him hell, Brian.
Yeah,
show that guy. I hope Brian wins, or this little lady's not gonna make it. Like, go help. Go help. So They turn the boat around. Turn the boat around. They got to turn the boat around. And head back to shore. Brian is looking after Sheridan, and then he goes to like get her a hot water bottle to warm up her body. And then this captain comes down, pulls the blanket off of
Oh,
Sheridan, and is like, "Oh, you are such a pretty little thing. I should at least get some of this before." It's like, oh my god! And so he
yeah,
starts
like
to
if I've
kind of
lost those
assault her.
fish, I should get something out of the deal.
Yeah, what? This man is again, like I said, wildly unnecessary.
I
All
wonder
of
if
these
Brian has
scenes.
sailed with this captain before. Like, it must be the first, because you would never do it twice.
It seems like he works on
Mm.
this guy's boat a lot, you know? And yeah, I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't work for this guy. And apparently he's a bad fisherman. He's not keeping up with his
Yeah.
quotas. Why would I want to be on his crew? You know? But Brian's doing it, which might tell you something about Brian. I don't know.
Mm.
I'm not feeling him. I'm not a fan yet. Okay.
You're not buying what they're selling for Brian.
I'm not a fan, but that's because I know things.
The captain
So
said as well, oh, I bet you've had your fun with her. So the captain thinks that Brian is as repulsive and criminal as he is.
I didn't even hear him say that.
Did
I'm
you?
glad you
Yeah,
caught
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I didn't even catch that. Gross.
Mm-hmm.
But also, yeah, that might speak to something about Brian. Why would the captain believe that about him? I don't know.
Mm.
So, Brian comes in, catches him kind of in the act. He doesn't get to do anything to Sheridan.
No,
Brian
I was
pulls.
glad that they stopped that when
Yeah.
I thought we can't do this again. We've just done this in Bermuda.
Like I said,
Julian and Theresa.
wildly unnecessary. Wildly unnecessary.
You know what? What's going on for the writers? They like to write about sexual assault.
I think the whole point was for us to believe that Brian is a real
He's
stand-up
such a good
guy.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but we could have done it in a very. I honestly,
Yeah.
just him pulling her from the water and fighting the
Enough.
captain, fine, would have been enough.
We didn't need that file. It was
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. He comes back. He beats up the captain, of course. The captain pulls out that giant knife again.
Why did Brian let him have the knife back after the first incident? How did he get the knife back?
Why? And then when they're fighting, the captain pulls out the knife, but Brian just tells him like, "Give up," and he just throws the knife down.
He's like, put the knife down. He's like telling him off like he's a naughty little boy. And the captain was like, nah.
Yeah.
You had all the power. Drunk captain. He's too
Yeah.
drunk.
Yeah, he's too drunk. He's too drunk. He just gave up. He throws the knife down and he leaves. And then Brian sits down next to Sheridan's bed and says, "I'm never gonna leave you alone again,
Yes.
Angel.
That was a
Never gonna
bit
leave her
odd.
alone again." They finally get to shore, and Sheridan. Oh, I'm sorry. They finally get to shore with Sheridan, and they plan to take her to. They say we got to get her to the hotel,
Yeah,
and
I was
call a doctor
unsure.
from there. And I was so confused because I was like, I was very confused for only a moment because I remember.
Well, I
how
knew
this
what they were
storyline
doing.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember how this storyline goes, but I was like, are they taking her back to the hotel that everybody else was at? And I was like, but that doesn't make sense. So I was like, let me just watch and see
That's what we were
happens.
supposed to think.
It was
I
what we were
think.
supposed
Yeah.
to think, and they set it up that way. That's why I was confused because I was
It
like,
was
I
quite
don't
good.
remember
It was
like
quite
that.
good, actually.
It really was. They got me.
Mm.
They actually got me. They really did. Because so he says we'll take her to the hotel and call the doctor. Meanwhile, at the hotel in Bermuda where Luis is, we see two guys dressed similarly to the two fishermen
This was funny.
bringing in a blonde body that they're like, we found this person in the storm. And Luis is like, it's Sheridan, it's my fiance. He pushes through and it's a blonde man. And so we get this bait and switch. But I even was like, I know this is not what happens. Like, I know.
And the guy
for a
wheeling the
fact
body was like, I could have told you it wasn't your fiance if you could have just let me speak.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you know? And then I Googled it, and obviously gay marriage was not legal in America at that year when that episode was made.
Let's see. Gay marriage became legal here in 2009, I believe. So yeah. It couldn't have been his fiance. I mean, I guess they could have been his fiance. They're in Bermuda. He didn't know they were
They are in
Americans.
Bermuda.
Could have been somewhere else. from somewhere else. So you're right. That man made an assumption that he didn't need to make. Anyway, yes. So they did this like bait and switch for us. So
It was a good fake out.
at the same time, Brian and the other fishermen are bringing Sheridan into the hotel, which is Liz's hotel, everybody. Liz has made her first appearance.
Liz is here.
Liz has made her first appearance. And I was just telling Eric the other day, we were talking on the phone, and we were talking about Passions a little bit, and I was saying, he was talking about how Liz shows up, and he was like, yeah, I remember really hating Liz. And I was like, yeah, I remember hating Liz. However, I have a feeling, I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to like Liz better this watch around, because I don't remember disliking Eve as much as I dislike Eve now.
Interesting. So you might be Team Liz.
I might end up, I don't know if I'm going to be Team Liz, but I don't know. I do see how Eve could deserve some revenge. Somebody getting
From what I
revenge on
remember,
Eve.
Liz's perspective, I do not agree with Liz's perspective, and I don't think I will agree with Liz's perspective, even though we now know that Eve is a villain.
My thing is, I don't think I'll necessarily agree with Liz's perspective, because I do remember what it was, and it was very like, how could Eve have helped you with that?
Ridiculous. Yeah.
But I don't think I'm going to dislike Liz as much as I disliked her in the past, because I don't like Eve. You know what I mean?
It's a bit like the Kay charity thing. You were kind of fine with Kay because not a fan of charity.
Yeah. So anyway, Liz shows up, and I do remember liking Liz until she gets to Harmony.
Oh yeah, she's quite pleasant until
we learn the Eve stuff. Yeah. Okay. So they get her into Liz's hotel. They call the doctor. Liz is like, why didn't you take her to Bermuda? Because they have a hospital there. Surprise, surprise, because it didn't seem like they had a hospital there, because they kept bringing all of the people who were out in the storm, out into the hotel lobby. So I was like, well, maybe there's not a hospital. I wrote that in my notes. I was like, maybe there's not a hospital on this island. And then Liz says, there's a hospital over there. So then I'm like, well, that throws my theory out the window.
So do you know what island we're on now, LeTara? Do you know the name of the island? Okay, so the name of the island, I thought I remembered it. I Googled it to check. They are on St. Lisa's Island. So St. Lisa's Island appears on the day Lisa appears on the podcast. I think it's fate.
It's fate. It's fate. Is St. Lisa's Island a real island? Is that a real place?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, kind of like Harmony. It's just like a fictional place. Well, cute. Thank you for Googling that.
I think this is called St. Well, I obviously remembered it because the Lisa connection, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm co-hosting when we arrive in St. Lisa's. Yeah,
it's fate.
Theresa would think so.
Theresa would definitely be like, girl, that island belongs to you. It's fate.
It doesn't have a hospital on it though, so
it doesn't have a hospital. Who wants to live on an island without a hospital?
But that doctor's so good.
Oh my God, this doctor. Okay, so every doctor in this show, every single doctor in this show is terrible. They all went to the same online medical school.
This doctor is in island casual attire. Maybe he's off duty.
He's got on like a Hawaiian shirt and his puka shells. So the doctor comes, he examines Sheridan. He says she's barely alive.
Yep.
But then, so he says she's barely alive, sends Liz and Brian out of the room while he examines Sheridan. Liz in this moment gleans that Brian has like developed feelings for this woman. How do you develop feelings for somebody who is dead? Doesn't make sense to me. Like, you haven't spoken to her, you haven't heard her voice, you don't know anything about her beyond the fact that she's half dead. It just doesn't do it for me. You're falling in love with a corpse. It doesn't make sense.
He's using his imagination a lot. It's like, when teenagers have crushes on celebrities it's a bit, it's not very mature.
But at least when you have a crush on a celebrity, it's like, I've seen you
a little
movies.
Bit about them.
Right. I've seen your work. I've seen you in movies. I've listened to your music. I've seen you in interviews. I've seen you dance. Like, there's something to latch onto. Like, if it was just for me, I had a crush on Jake Gyllenhaal. If I just saw a picture of Jake Gyllenhaal with his eyes closed, I probably would have been like, I don't It's not doing anything for me. No, I
This does
watched
bring
Donnie
me to my next
Darko.
question, though. How famous are the cranes? That's what I really want to know. That's what I
There,
really want to know.
this whole shit is ridiculous. We are about to talk about this. So the doctor examines her. At first he says she's barely alive. After he sends them out into the hallway and they talk about how Brian has like developed some feelings for this mystery woman, the doctor comes out and says, she's fine.
She's just
She's
exhausted.
fine. And here's the thing. I'm accepting this from Passions because they did the whole power prayer thing and had like the light ball. And fine, she's fine. Even though she went through the explosion and the hurricane,
She still had her sarong on, LeTara, so she came out very unscathed. No burns, no nothing.
completely unscathed. Thanks in part, I believe, to Sheridan and Sheridan, my goodness, Charity and that other woman, Grace.
They did know that they'd helped someone they knew, so
yeah, they felt like they had helped somebody. And later on, we see Pilar talking to Luis about praying for a miracle. So we are meant to believe that this is a miracle, and I'm fine with that.
God doesn't give them out every day.
Actually, it's not. Actually, it's nice that they have explained this as a miracle because it sincerely would take a miracle for her to be okay.
We're not expected to suspend our disbelief. They're just saying, we know she wouldn't have survived. We're giving this miracle to Sheridan. I respect that more.
Sheridan's getting yet another miracle, touched by an angel, literally, this lady.
Because she is an angel.
Because she's an angel. So the doctor says she's fine. Then he goes off. He says, call me if she wakes up. He comes back later while Liz and Brian are standing lording over Sheridan's body, trying to figure out who she is. And he comes back and tells them, I think this woman might be Sheridan Crane. He says, I think this woman might be Sheridan Crane. And they're like, no, there's no way. This woman is not Sheridan Crane. And they go back and forth for a while.
Let's go get the tabloids out of the shed and have a look, I think Brian said at one point.
At one point, he does say that. Because Liz says, well, I saw a picture of Sheridan once when she was a little girl, and she looked so sad. And then Brian's like, yeah, and I saw a clip of her on the news, but she was wearing a wide-brimmed hat and big glasses. It's hard to tell if this is the same woman.
The Cranes are very private.
This irked me because Brian suggests, well, we've got some old magazines out in the shed. Why don't we go through them? There's bound to be a picture of her in there somewhere. And the doctor's like, I doubt it. The Cranes are very picture or camera shy. They rarely let their pictures be published. Since when? Sheridan
That's not the narrative.
Sheridan never shuts up about how the tabloids are constantly printing lies about her.
They are America's royal family. They are well known to the public.
We just saw 2 tabloid storylines about the Cranes. So yes, they print their pictures in magazines. Sheridan is the American princess. Beyond that, does this island not have internet? Why wouldn't they just look her up?
They need Reese's Palm Pilot.
Reese is constantly looking stuff up. They can't do it
on Warlock Island. He has signal.
Right, you can't do it on Lisa. What island was it?
St. Lisa's.
St. Lisa's Island. You can't. They don't have internet.
I have Wi-Fi on my island.
Exactly.
Very well connected.
Of course you would have Wi-Fi on your island. Of course you would. So I don't know why. We did this for so long.
Well, you know how the telephone lines were down because of the storm? Is the internet down because of the storm? Maybe we're giving Passions an excuse again. We're giving them more than they deserve.
That's fair. But at no point do they even talk about looking it up. You know, like once the phone lines are up, we can.
Yeah.
Because they would have dial-up internet at this point, so it would be reliant on the phone lines.
2001, 2002.
2001.
Yeah.
2001. I think we're in August or September of 2001. So, this guy says, the doctor says, well, the Cranes are camera shy. They rarely let their pictures be taken, which is not true.
There are events all over. They're in the society pages constantly.
Yeah, they're constantly in the tabloids. That's all that's one of the main things they all talk about. Every single one of them. So I didn't care for that at all. But whatever. Liz says, well, why don't we just call the Cranes? They live in a town called Harmony. And why don't we just call them? sure, I can just call. Sure, let's just go call up Jeff Bezos. You can just
Yeah, but to be fair, they did only get the number for Crane Industries, so we could get the number
okay.
for Amazon Helpline.
That is to be fair, that's true. Because she was trying to get the number to the house, and she did
The
get
Crane
number.
family in harmony.
Yeah, because it's like, girl, I don't think you can just get the people's numbers like that, even back then. So she gets the number and tells Brian you should make the call. You saved her life. You should get the reward. He hesitates to make the call. She says it's because you have feelings for her, isn't it? He's like, well, I mean, no, yes, no, maybe so. I don't know. This was all very confusing to me. Why he wouldn't call. Oh, you know what? I know why he wouldn't call.
Oh, we know why he wouldn't call. We don't do spoilers here.
Yeah, I just realized why he wouldn't call. Because I was like,
that's why he wouldn't call.
I was like, why is he? But yeah, it's a spoiler.
Because we need to talk about this. You know, when Liz was saying, "Oh, they're so rich, they're going to give you, money, they're going to give you a reward," and Brian said, "Are you trying to get me killed?"
Yes.
And then he took a beat and said, "I can't accept. It's a bad luck to accept money for rescuing someone at sea." I googled that. I don't feel that it's a real thing, but it's definitely a real thing on St. Lisa because they all agree.
Yeah. I thank you. You know what? You and I just put 2 and 2 together just now because I was having an issue with this. He says, "Are you trying to get me killed?" And then he goes into this superstition about taking money for saving someone's life at sea. And like you said, they all are like, yeah, that is a real superstition. Okay. But yeah,
what I didn't like also was Liz said, "Ooh, she's going to owe you when she wakes up." And then Brian said, "Yeah, but fat lot of good that's going to do me if she has a boyfriend." So it was almost like there was an insinuation that she was going to owe him sex for rescuing her from the sea, which I really didn't like either.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we do know that Liz is not the greatest when it comes to that kind of stuff. You know, once we get there, you'll know. But yeah, he does cover by saying the superstition. Yeah, I was confused by that, but I took it as when I was watching it, I was like, oh, he really is super into this superstition for some reason.
I was like, is this a real superstition? And I could find no evidence because I do have the internet, unlike them.
Unlike them, apparently. But yeah, it's because we know the future and we know what his connection to the Cranes is. And I'm sure many of you out there also know what his connection to the Cranes is. I've been spoiling stuff a little bit too much lately. So I'm trying to like make sure I go.
It's tough because this is over 20 years ago. So yeah, is it classed as a spoiler? But yeah, it's fun for people that are watching along with the podcast.
I think what I'm going to do with Brian, this is my plan anyway, is like to go along with this for as long as Sheridan is there on the island. And then once we kind of get past that, we'll get I'll let it fly.
They'll probably drop enough clues so we know it's not a spoiler.
Yeah, they'll drop enough clues. Once they drop a few clues, then we'll say like, okay, this is what's going on. Which most y'all already know what's going on. But I do know that there are people who are watching and have not watched the whole thing before and don't know.
I think we're doing very well to keep this straight and keep
we're doing a good job. Yeah, it's Brian. I wrote Brian because originally I didn't. So anyway, Sheridan, that's like it. Back in Harmony. So now we can go back to Harmony. Let's finish up with what's going on with the Louise.
Oh, can I just say one more thing that really annoyed me? You know, when Louise was mourning with the urn on the beach for all those days and hours, he kept saying, "I wish a boat would bring Sheridan back to me." I have a feeling that she is on a boat. Is Louise also psychic like other? He seemed to know exactly what was happening.
You know what I think it is? I think that these people in the show who have like these super like faded love connections like Louise and Sheridan have I think the two of them kind of have a connection. And that's why
love in past lives.
Yeah, we're gonna see. I think we already did a Titanic
did I spoil?
flashback. No. I think we already did a Titanic flashback, and then we're also going to see, I think, like a Cleopatra one, like an Egyptian one between them.
So their love is bonding them and giving. Yeah. Okay.
And I think because of that, because he says multiple times, I
I
have
know it
like
can't
this, I
be.
know my
Yeah.
head knows it, but my heart
Yeah.
feels something else. And I think it truly is his connection to Sheridan. I really think
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. So yeah, they
I'll
have
go
like
with it. Yeah.
some supernatural stuff between them, and it's their love, a supernatural love. Uh,
Transcends space and time.
oh, I just love the two of them.
So do
I
I.
I love the two of them, and yeah. So
Yeah.
we're back in Harmony. Everybody gets back to Harmony. And they all go directly to the
Mm-hmm.
hospital, because Ivy. Well, Julian doesn't go directly to the hospital. Rebecca and Gwen, they don't go to the hospital, but everybody else does. So Luis sees Pilar first, and she sees him, and she has just had a conversation with Charity, who
Mm-hmm.
had all of these premonitions, and Charity tells her about all of the premonitions, about the boat blowing up, about Luis and Sheridan being like something happening to them, about something happening to Theresa. So Pilar's on edge. So when she sees Luis, she says, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're okay. You're all right." And he says to her, "Why wouldn't I be?" What the fuck do you mean? Why wouldn't I be?
That was odd.
That was so stupid. What do you mean? Why wouldn't I be? You first of all, you've been through a hurricane, and you were on a boat that exploded. Even if your mom doesn't know that, why would you say what?
You
Wouldn't
just
you
say,
just say
Mum, I'm
like,
so glad to see you. It's been
yeah,
awful. Why wouldn't
yeah?
I be?
Why wouldn't I be? As if you had like the most smooth sailing of a trip. You didn't. So anyway, he then tells Pilar, because again, why wouldn't I be? And then in the next breath, he tells Pilar that Sheridan's dead. Maybe that's why you wouldn't be okay. Then you told her about how you were on a boat that exploded.
And how
Um,
you were being Aquaman, jumping in and in and in the water to try and find Sheridan.
Sheridan. It's not funny. It's funny, but it's not funny. Like the
I'm just
way
laughing at Maria's gag. That
it
was
was,
funny.
so the way, like, and she's like Aquaman, and it's so true. He kept jumping in the water.
He did not give up.
He would never give up, and that's one of the things we love about Luis. So he explains that Sheridan is dead, and that what happened. And he says that his heart keeps telling him
Yeah.
that he shouldn't give up hope that Sheridan is alive.
He
That
said, I
his
haven't told
head,
anyone this. I still think she's alive.
yeah. Then Luis makes a comment about Julian and Alistair still being alive. He's like, it's not fair that they should be alive and she had to die. It should have been them, which he's not wrong.
Yeah.
And Pilar tells him not to even think of them anymore. You don't have to think of them anymore. You have no reason to
Yes.
speak to them, be in contact with them. And Luis says and does exactly what I thought he would say and do after Sheridan is dead. He's like, I still think that they had something
Yeah.
to do with Papa. I'm gonna prove it. And just because Sheridan is dead doesn't mean that I'm gonna stop. I know that they had, like, yes, I don't know what they thought this plan was gonna do besides kill
They
Sheridan.
thought he was going to be too grief-stricken. No, he now needs something to focus on. So he's going to be more intent on discovering your secret. You
Exactly. He doesn't
fools.
have anything to do. What y'all should have done is let them get married and bought them a fucking house in France. That's
They
what
would
y'all
have been
should have
making
done.
love all day, all night. They wouldn't have time to do anything else, those two.
Bought them a house in Spain. They love Spain.
Yeah.
He would have gone to Spain in a second.
Yeah.
That's what you should have done, but that's not what they did. Anyway. Sorry. So Pilar tells him, please calm down. I know you're hurting. And then Hank interrupts with a theory that, and
Yes.
you know what? Good on Hank on this
Yep.
one. Hank says, are you sure? Are you certain that the right woman was cremated? Because we know the lengths that the Cranes have gone to keep the two of you from each other. Maybe Julian and Alistair have like put some crazy plan into place, and the woman that you cremated wasn't actually Sheridan. But Luis says he ID'd the fingerprints and the dental records himself, and there's no denying it, basically.
I think that was just to fill in people that maybe hadn't watched last week that were very, very confused.
Yeah. But this is when Pilar tells Louise to go to the chapel and pray to God for a miracle.
I
And
did
maybe
not like this.
you didn't.
Well, he said dental records, fingerprints. We know Pilar is a terrible mother. Why is she encouraging her son, where is proof his fiance has passed away, hard evidence? She is telling him to go and ask God for a miracle.
Yeah.
I do not think it
Yeah.
was good. I thought it
You
was
know what? I
crazy.
agree. I agree with you, Lisa. I do agree with you. It didn't bother me in the moment. And I think the reason it didn't bother me is because Sheridan isn't dead.
Because there was a miracle.
Yeah, because there was a miracle and we know that, but to your point, she doesn't know that. And
he's drowning in grief. She's
yeah,
like, ask God to resuscitate Sheridan from
you are
ashes.
absolutely right.
I
You're
did not
absolutely right.
like it.
Pilar was dead wrong for that. You're right on the money.
I wrote, this is
Because
insane. Pilar is a bad mother, in capital letters.
Pilar, oh my gosh, Pilar pissed me off this week.
Yeah.
And this is just like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I think we're probably pissed off at the same thing.
Yeah, we definitely are. So that's it really for the Sheridan and Louise storyline this week. Let's finish up with what's going on with Theresa, the group from Bermuda, once they get back to Harmony. And so the Bermuda group, Theresa, Whitney, Chad, Ethan, Louise, all go to Harmony Hospital. Whitney keeps bringing up Theresa's secret. It's like, girl, shut up. Shut up. We are in a public place.
I've written down, if Theresa and Whitney really don't want anyone to know the secret, maybe they should stop talking about it.
Yes.
Out loud in the public forum.
This is a public space. Shut the hell up.
But, so, of course, Eve hears them talking about Julian.
Oh, my God. So Eve overhears them talking about Julian, and then she's like, what about Julian Crane? Of course, reasonably so. What are you girls talking about Julian Crane for? Whitney explains that Theresa went to Bermuda to convince Julian to adopt Ethan, and that it didn't work. And Eve says, what you did for Ethan was kind, but it was foolish. And Julian Crane is a man who is not to be trusted. He is a user, a vile, corrupt man who only cares about himself. Women are not safe around him, especially young, innocent girls like you. I could have told you that Julian wouldn't give you what you want. He only cares about himself. And it was, you could feel that it was personal for her. And we know, I mean, we know it is.
You thought that would have piqued their interest, actually. Now you've just said it back like that. You would have thought they would have been like, that's a lot of insight, Eve.
I was waiting for the scene where Whitney confronts her mother about that. I really was. I thought,
how do you know so much about Julian Crane?
Yeah, I thought there was going to be a moment where Whitney says to Eve, like, did something happen between you and Julian? Like, it just seems like you have a very personal understanding of who he is, you know.
But Whitney is kind of just seen as well on the island that matches exactly with what her mum has just said to her. You'd want some more.
But that never came up. They just framed it as everybody knows these things about Julian, and the girls should have known better, basically.
Well, I thought it was funny because Eve was like, that she said, well, next time before you travel internationally, just check with me first, Whitney. I was glad you went to support your friend, but please let me know. So I think Whitney was like, oh, I'm off the hook. I just flew off to Bermuda without telling anyone until I got there.
Not a parent in this show. Not a parent in this town. There is not a good parent in this town.
I haven't seen one.
I can't think of a single one. Silence, crickets. Can you think of a single good parent?
I mean, I thought about Sam when you said that, because he went to such great lengths to set up the beacon.
No. Sam.
No. And Jessica is always hugging him. That was sweet.
Yeah. But
best of a bad bunch?
Sam's not around enough. Wait, what'd you say?
He's the best of a bad bunch.
He's the best I would say, honestly, you know who's the best parent? It's Tabitha.
I was gonna, yeah.
Tabitha's the best parent in Harmony, and she doesn't even have kids. But anyway, yeah, Eve didn't even know where her daughter was, and was like, yeah, next time you want to travel to Bermuda internationally, just let me know. Oh,
She is
okay.
probably sedating herself just a little bit, isn't she, Eve? She's chilled about everything.
I feel like I made a joke about that last week,
I
or
think I've
like,
stolen your joke. Yeah.
and felt bad about it because we know that Eve has a history of like
Oh,
drug
yes, yes,
abuse, and I
yes.
was
Yes.
like, she's into the sedatives, but she loves giving out a sedative. Anyway, um, so uh, after this little chat with after Pilar has her chat with Luis, she then also reunites with Theresa. And
Mhm.
she's on edge because Charity has told her, Theresa, I saw a vision of Theresa with a different man and she was drinking champagne and like her life was ruined afterwards. And so she asks her if anything happened to her in Bermuda. And Teresa's like, no, I came through the hurricane perfectly fine. And um, Pilar says, that's not what I'm talking about. Charity had these premonitions and I was worried about that. And so Theresa, she tells her Pilar tells Theresa what the premonition
Yeah,
was.
Theresa said she was curious. What?
Yeah.
What did Charity see? I'm just curious.
And then Theresa becomes visibly shaken when Pilar basically recounts exactly what
Mhm.
happened on the island. And Pilar can see that her daughter is like shaken up by this news. And Pilar forces the truth out of her.
Yeah, so she
She's like,
sees her daughter's shaken up. She starts threatening her. Obviously, I'm going to
yeah,
tell Louise and Ethan you're keeping secrets.
yeah. What are you doing, Pilar? She's like, what happened in Bermuda? You tell me right now what happened in Bermuda. Whatever happened, I'm a victim.
Yes,
Whatever happened, I'm the victim. So why are you yelling at me?
which is not the angle Pilar takes
Far from it.
at all.
Far from it. So Theresa tells her what happened. Kind of. This drove me crazy. Girl, tell the story in order and tell all the correct details. The first detail that you need to start with is I went down to talk to Mr. Crane about reinstating Ethan. That was my goal. Okay. The next one is then he would not talk to me if I didn't drink champagne with him.
Mhm.
Don't leave that out. She left that out entirely. She left that
Maybe
out
I've been too
entirely.
harsh on Pilar.
Yeah, I mean, well, no. No, because we all know that she knows what Julian's reputation is. She also knows that her
Yes.
daughter would never, everybody knows that Theresa would never willingly get married to or sleep with Julian.
You're right.
So she forces the truth out of her. Theresa tells her, again, kind of tells her the truth, which is she tells her all the worst parts. She tells her all the parts
Yeah.
that make her look bad instead of the parts that make it clear that Julian took advantage of her.
Yeah, she was just like, we got married. I had champagne and we got married.
Yeah. So then Pilar pulls a Charity and
Yeah,
passes
took the
out.
words right out of my mouth. That's what I've written down. Pilar has a look of terror and does a Charity, i.e. faints.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. She faints, passes out, hits the ground, thunk, just like Charity. And because Theresa says, I'm now Mrs. Julian Crane, and that triggers her to pass out and fall.
Why did she
Yeah.
answer to that name on the plane as well? Sorry,
Oh
I'm
my
going
God, I
backwards.
skipped
That was
over that.
ridiculous.
No, I skipped over that note. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yeah. At one point, just rewinding for everybody. At one point when they're on the plane, a flight attendant comes and says, Mrs. Crane, and she and Rebecca both say yes. Why, Theresa? Why are you doing this?
2 minutes ago, she had said, I do not feel like your wife she'd said that is not how I identify. I only want to be married to Ethan. So why would you answer? It was ridiculous.
Honestly, it almost feels like this week it was written by somebody new. Like it was written by a new writer, because Whitney's doing all kinds of weird shit. Teresa's doing all kinds of stuff that she typically wouldn't say or do. Hank had a good point. It just
I wonder if there was a writer's strike in 2001 and they got scab writers who didn't know the characters.
These people, because it does, and I will say Pilar also, because she's gonna come too and she's gonna say some shit. Pilar also feels out of character to a point. So
she's very intense.
Yeah. So Whitney and Theresa are trying to bring her around and wake her up, even though y'all are in a hospital. Call for help. Call for help.
Yeah.
Your mom just fainted and she won't wake
Pilar
up.
doesn't want to see a nurse.
That's what she says when she wakes up, which is, girl, you just bumped your head. You should at least get checked out.
She's a martyr.
They're trying to bring her around. And then Ethan and Luis show up, and Luis is like, what the hell happened? And he picks her up, and she starts to wake up. And then Luis is like, wait here, I'm gonna go get a nurse. And Ethan goes to get some water. So they go to try and get somebody. I guess they both come back with nothing. They eventually come back with nothing and no one. So they leave for just enough time for Pilar to have a conversation with Theresa, wherein Theresa explains that she not only married Julian, but she also had sex with Julian, that she thinks. And she says, I got so drunk, I was drinking champagne, I didn't know what was going on. I thought that Mr. Crane was Ethan. I thought that I was marrying Ethan. She tells her basically what happened. And Pilar...
Well, Pilar looked really angry. I've written down that I thought she's a good actress, but she's furious with Theresa, which annoyed me a lot because, as you've said, Theresa is the victim of a predator.
Theresa is a victim. There's no getting around it. There's just no getting around it. I know it's 2001. In 2001, I was watching Lifetime movies. I don't know. Do y'all have Lifetime? You have Lifetime in the UK, right?
We get the movies on Channel 5 here. Yeah. We don't have a Lifetime channel. We get them. Yeah.
You know what I mean when I say Lifetime movies. And I feel like the Lifetime movies during that era were very like girls getting date raped and like learning about those kinds of things. So like Pilar should know better at this point. I feel like your kids, and this is your child. She's 18 and you know how Julian is.
She says she'll deal with Julian, but I was annoyed by how annoyed she was with Theresa rather than being like, oh my gosh, this awful thing has happened to you. We need to support you, get you some support. And yeah.
We need to rally
the authorities
around you.
Can deal with Julian. Yeah.
Okay. So Luis comes back. Whitney tells Pilar, I'm sorry, y'all, because it was all very convoluted in this moment, and that's why I'm getting a little mixed up. When Pilar comes to, Whitney tells Pilar, like, the guys can't know, they're gonna go to jail. I agree with Theresa.
She said for the first time, I agree with Theresa, which made me giggle.
Yeah. So like,
only because of this new writer, though. You never agreed with Theresa before.
That's what
Whitney.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Whitney has changed in just one trip.
And that's Bermuda. Why she agrees with Theresa. She would never agree with Theresa.
It's the Bermuda Triangle. She has changed.
Yeah, so maybe they flew through it on the way out.
That's not the real Whitney. The real Whitney's in Bermuda somewhere, and she got switched out. Yeah, it's her evil twin.
Like Avril Lavigne.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't know about that. But anyway, that's not important.
Sorry, I was referencing last episode.
Thank you. Yeah. No, yeah, Avril. I actually thought about this week because that song came on. Hey, you, I don't like your girlfriend. And I was like, that's not Avril Lavigne. It's her clone. Okay. So, yes. Whitney says, for the first time, I agree with Theresa. We can't tell them because they're going to kill Julian. They'll both end up in jail for the rest of their lives. And Pilar's like, well, they're going to want to know why I fainted. I don't know what to tell them.
This was ridiculous. Pilar said, I can't hide the truth. I thought, where did Theresa get her amazing lying abilities from? Definitely not Pilar.
You can't hide the truth. You hid the truth from Sam and Grace for 25 years.
Actually, that's such a good point. Yeah, Pilar can never lie, remember? They've brought it back.
It's bullshit. That's bullshit. Of course Pilar can lie. We've seen her lie multiple times at this point.
For 25 years.
Mostly for Ivy. So she did a lot of lying. She did some lying for Theresa too, because she knew that Theresa knew about about Ethan's real paternity and about it being on her computer and all of that. She's done plenty of lying.
Maybe she just can't lie to her family because it's Luis. Yeah, she probably lied about Theresa being in the Crane Mansion to Luis. Anyway, this annoyed me so much. Yeah, no, she's a liar, and she says, "I can't. Why am I going to tell them I fainted? I can't think of a reason." I thought of 5 reasons in 5 seconds. Low blood sugar, it's hot, stress, grief of losing the woman I saw as my daughter. Pick one.
Yes. The shock that was the one for me. I was like, yeah, you just found out about Sheridan and your kids just came back. been through this ordeal. You've been through a lot. Just the fact that you were so worried about them and then they finally came back, that could be overwhelming. You know what I mean? You've just been through a lot tonight. It's been through a hurricane, through a superstorm. Like, yeah.
And even
But she's
Louise said
like,
it's like, oh, it's not like you to faint, mama. Yeah, it's not like me to have so much stressful events back to back in my life. I fainted. Get
yeah.
over it.
Yeah, well, and then that begs the question, why didn't anybody insist on getting her checked out? Like, we're in a hospital anyway. Just take her to the ER. To ask Eve. My
You're
God.
there. Yeah.
So
And
anyway,
then, yeah, Louise pulls an Ethan.
yes, he says, but you know what? It was
Yep.
it was more correct than Ethan ever is,
It
right?
was
Like
highly logical.
it
Yeah.
made more sense than anything Ethan's ever said. He says, I get it. I understand why you fainted. It's because the shock of losing Sheridan. She was like a daughter to you. I understand. Yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Makes complete sense. So Theresa, I'm sorry. At this point, Louise says it's the shock of Sheridan's death. And then he goes on like this tirade about how much he hates Julian and
if he
Alistair.
touched Theresa, she'd kill him. He'd kill him.
Yeah, they do this a lot where they bring up something that's completely unrelated and make it about Theresa somehow, even though like we were talking about Pilar fainting. We weren't talking about Julian, but now all of a sudden we're talking about Julian and if he ever touched Theresa, whatever. So yeah, he goes on this tirade about how he would murder Julian. And so that reinforces this idea that if Louise or Ethan found out about what happened between Julian and Theresa, that he would either one of them or both would kill Julian and end up spending the rest of their lives in prison. I'm not buying
They're
it,
really
though.
underestimating these men. Yeah, like they think that both Louise and Ethan would turn to murder rather than just letting justice take its course. It's really, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they would not fight him, beat him up, but I think they would stop short of murdering Julian.
They might break his legs.
And the thing about Louise is, at the end of the day, Louise is a cop, and in this crooked police department, right? Like there's so much cronyism going on in this police department. He could plan for Julian's disappearance and probably get away with it. You know what I mean? With Sam's help, because he's the chief of police. So I just
he could be smarter about it.
This whole
if that's what you wanted, yeah,
this whole they're gonna spend the rest of their lives in jail thing. It's like, it doesn't wash for me. It doesn't.
It's a leap
for me. It's such a leap because also it would be considered a crime of passion. So they probably wouldn't spend the rest of, even if they did get caught or, even if they did manage to murder Julian, they probably wouldn't spend the rest of their lives in jail. They probably do 10 to 15.
It's a crime of passions.
Yeah, it's a crime of passions. Exactly. So whatever, we're done with that. Luis goes off on a tirade about how much he hates Julian and Alistair, and he talks about including their treatment of Sheridan, which is fair. He's like, they treated her like shit. Julian should be the one who died, and I agree. I was like, yeah, but anyway.
Pilar tells him not to have hate in his heart, so she's trying to bring that simmer down so he doesn't end up in jail.
Yeah, and then she sends him off to the chapel, and he heads to the chapel to pray for his miracle, right?
And then Pilar finds out that they had sex.
Yeah, which I thought she already knew. Why'd she pass out in the first place?
But just the marriage was enough to make her pass out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. So then Pilar starts going in on Theresa, saying, if Ethan and Luis go to jail for murdering Julian, it'll be on your head. And like, girl, your child was raped.
This is not what she needs right now.
Your child was raped. And Pilar really didn't do it for me this week. I was really disgusted. She said, like you said, she'll deal with Julian later, but I'm so furious with you. I'm so furious with you, Theresa, for being so naive and going down
victim
there.
blaming.
Yeah. How many times have I warned you about that man? And
oh my God, yes. I saw him running after maids. Pilar, why didn't you contact the police, your son? She was basically saying she witnessed these crimes happening in the Crane mansion.
Yeah. And Why would you let Theresa then work in the Crane Mansion?
Such a good point.
And I know that Theresa, but again, it speaks to how poorly Pilar does as a parent, that Theresa just does not listen to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, why? How?
Well,
We
I'd
wouldn't
written
even be
down,
here. We wouldn't even be here if she hadn't let Theresa work for Ivy in the mansion.
actually, yeah. So by Theresa logic, it's all Pilar's fault.
It is Pilar's
Yeah.
fault.
I wrote down earlier, because Pilar said she saw Sheridan as a daughter. I was like, and she said she practically raised her. I'm like, if this is true, why did Sheridan and Luis not meet until well into their adulthood if they basically both had the same mother? And it's because she was always at the Crane Mansion, never
Exactly.
with her
They didn't
own
even
kids.
recognize each other.
Mhm.
Yeah, she barely spent any time with her own kids. I will say, when she says she practically raised Sheridan, I was like, but Sheridan was shipped off to France at like 12.
Yeah, she practically raised Ethan, allegedly, but Sheridan too?
Ethan was shipped off to like boarding school. So like,
Who has Pilar raised?
yeah.
Not Paloma.
I mean, not Paloma, not any of her children. She's raised no one. She's raised exactly no one. Yeah, she's still got
But she
time
is the
with
most
Miguel.
important person in Ivy's life, so she's focused more on friendship.
She's raised Ivy. Let's say that.
Yeah.
She's spent her time protecting and caring for Ivy. So yeah, that's basically it for them this week, right? You got anything
Yeah.
to add?
Oh, well, no, you've missed out the best bit.
I
Pilar
did.
slaps
Oh
Julian.
yes, the Julian bit. Oh my god, I can't believe that. Thank you so much. Yes. So after Pilar finishes going in on, well, they're in the middle of a
This was
conversation.
amazing timing.
Julian, who has come to the hospital at Alistair's behest to visit Ivy,
This is
because
funny.
for optics purposes, because it would look bad if he didn't go and visit Ivy, because they're hailing her as the hero.
She's
of
the hero of
town.
Harmony.
She's the hero of Harmony. He goes to her room with a thing of roses, calls her the whore of Harmony, starts fucking with the equipment that's keeping her alive.
The mother of his 3 children, lest we forget.
Yeah, yeah. And
justice for Fox, Pretty, and Fancy.
Oh my god. And I have a note about them in the Ivy stuff.
Let's get there.
He goes to her room with the flowers, fucking with shit, calls her the whore of Harmony. And then when he messes with the machines, she kind of opens her eyes, realizes it's him, goes, get out.
She thought it was Sam at first.
Yeah, she thought it was Sam when she heard somebody come in, but then she opens her eyes, sees Julian, and is like, get out.
Yeah.
And then all of her machines start going haywire. A nurse comes in and tells him to leave, and he's like, gladly. And then he throws the flowers down on Ivy.
Gosh.
Yuck.
It was so did we just see an attempted murder then, basically, there?
I mean, actually, yes, because the way he was messing with her machines was very disgusting and scary, and like, you don't know what any of this stuff does.
He said to, who was that new character they introduced, like
the
that
lawyer?
sent him to the hospital? Yeah, was he called Harper or someone? He said to that lawyer, why couldn't the lightning have just done its job so I wouldn't have to deal with her again? Again, that is the mother of 3 of your children. Yeah. You also do not love your kids.
And for him to be calling Ivy the whore of Harmony with as many affairs as he's had on her.
Yeah.
In her face, it's just there's no world where the fact that I get it. You thought that Ethan was your son. She passed him off as your son for a long time. That's a good reason to be angry with somebody, for sure. But you are not an angel. You're no saint. You weren't a good husband at all by any stretch of the imagination. It's like, and y'all kind of forced her into it. I'm not gonna say Ivy didn't have a choice, but she kind of didn't have a choice.
I mean, I guess if he's calling her a whore, we're to take from that he's alleging that she's promiscuous because she cheated with Sam. Maybe one person 25 years ago. We haven't heard of Ivy having any affairs, but we've heard of Julian chasing maids around the house, having his way with maids with and without their will. So if anyone is going to be accused of being that word, it's got to be Julian. But of course, there is no male word for that. So.
He's such a slut.
Mhm.
He is. And so I don't know. Every time he has this whole line of dialogue with Ivy, it really bothers me, especially considering the fact that he was such a horrible, horrible, horrible husband to her. Horrible. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I
she
did
still gave him
mention.
3 children. And she still gave him 3
Oh
children.
yeah, she had sex with him at least 3
At
times. How did
least
that
3
happen?
times. At least 4 times, because it
Oh
had to be
yeah,
enough for her to for him to
yeah.
believe that Ethan was his, right?
I just
So
don't know how she did it.
I honestly,
I bet she thought of Sam.
listen, I'm not gonna lie. Do I think Julian is like the hottest? No. But is there something about him? Yes.
I know
Like,
what you
could I do it?
mean.
Yes, I could absolutely do it.
I thought he'd had a fresh dye job this week as well. His hair looks browner. He'd
He
been
looks
he'd been grooming
good.
himself.
He looks good. Like Julian, again, Julian's not the hottest at all, but there's definitely something about him.
I wonder if they have the costumes or if he just does those with Becky
Oh my
in their
God.
marriage.
Ivy would never, ever, ever. No. She laid there, she took it, she did her duty and was done with it. There's no way she role played with him.
Laid back and thought of Sam.
Yeah, yeah.
She might have asked him to role play as a police officer.
Oh, that actually, you know what? I bet she probably
Get the
did.
handcuffs. Or a
You know-
lifeguard. Pretend I'm drowning and save me
Oh,
from
yeah,
the
and
sea.
save me. No, I think that'd be too much for our poor little Ivy. Poor little Ivy. Okay, so sorry, y'all. I'm off track. Yes, Julian is at the hospital. Julian is at the hospital, and after Pilar hears about what he has done to Theresa, he comes in, interrupts their conversation. He doesn't realize what the conversation is about, and Pilar immediately attacks him. She immediately attacks him like, you bastard. I don't remember exactly what she says, because it basically cuts off, because that's like the last thing we see.
She just ran up to him and slapped the shit out of him.
Runs up to him, slaps him, and that's that. That's that for this week with them. That's it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because Theresa has explained to her mother that she woke up in bed with Julian, and oh, it's all very sad. But her mother blames her. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
No ounce of empathy for what her daughter's just been through that we could see.
Yeah, Pilar was just not doing it for me this week at all. At all. Until she slapped Julian. I did like that.
That was quite good.
I did like that. All right. So we're going to get to our troubled marriages and magic. So let's start with where Sam is like feeling guilty. He's talking to TC and bringing TC up to speed. So much of this was just recap that I am not going to say.
Absolutely.
But he's feeling guilty about Ivy's injuries. He confides in TC about the whole situation between him and David and Grace. Meanwhile, David is like around the corner listening in on this conversation. And then Sam just brings TC fully up to speed on everything that has happened basically since David showed up.
And interestingly, for the first time, kind of admitted that the evidence was overwhelming.
Yep. That's like the only thing in this conversation that was, but again, it was recap, but it was because Sam was doing the recap. It was like he had to say, he even had all of this evidence that I'm a police officer. I had to accept it.
He knows all her habits, like honey in her tea or making lists before she goes to bed.
Listen,
I make lists.
I put honey in my tea. I make lists too. And I put honey in my tea. And today when I was putting honey in my tea, because I made it right before we started, and I was like, I'm putting honey in my tea. Could I be Grace?
Well, TC said that's compelling. I love how he didn't mention about the angel girl. He knows she sees an angel girl. He knows she has even he knew she does stretches first thing every morning. Even he knows she has orange juice mixed with cranberry juice. Would have been better than those two very broad examples.
It was grapefruit juice that she has with cranberry juice. Remember, because you like grapefruit juice.
I do. Can't believe I forgot Grace's favorite drink. I'm definitely not her husband. Her husband. That's something only a husband should know.
And even Sam didn't know it. Sam didn't know. He looked at her. Is that true? Why are you serious?
Embarrassing.
Okay. So, TC, Sam's just recapping to TC. He does finally say, David's her husband, not me. That's the
Mm-hmm.
first time we hear him say something
Yeah,
like that.
Sam's now saying this is the only marriage recognized by the church or the state, which he's never said that those kind of grace-like statements before. So that was interesting.
Yeah. And then he tells TC about what Eve made him do in talking to
Yes.
Ivy and pretending like they never broke up, and saying that he never stopped, and then he tells TC that I told her I never stopped loving her, and Grace walked in, and this is when TC says, I don't care what Eve said, I would never say those things to another woman other than my wife. Are you sure you don't still have feelings for Ivy? And
I thought that was harsh. Like, has TC been in love with another woman before Eve?
see, and that's the thing about TC. He is so hell-bent on these absolutes. And actually, this is one of the things that bothers me about this show in general, that it's like you can only love one person, and that's it. There's only one person. First of all, you can only love one person at a time, but on top of that, like, you can only ever have loved, truly
Like, there's
loved.
one true love for everyone.
Yeah, and that's just, I mean, and also, for it's a soap opera, so most soap operas, people are changing people around all the time, and so it just to me, it doesn't work in this format, especially since we know what comes along for everybody in this show, where the people who start together, a lot of them do not end up together, and they switch out a lot, and so I don't know. TC's so irritating with this. Like, I agree. It was a little harsh. I would never have said that. Like, not even to save somebody's life. Like, maybe you wouldn't say it to Ivy, but say Pilar. You wouldn't lie to Pilar to kind of try to bring her back to life, It's not
that's
asking
pretty
too
harsh,
much.
TC. Yeah.
I mean, it is bad medical advice, I will say. Like, it's not medicine at all. But
Yeah.
but it was kind of mean to say to your best friend, to be like, I would never, are you sure? Because I would never talk that way to another woman other than my wife. Okay, good for you, TC.
He
Let's
did
see
say
how you
something
feel when
good, though.
Liz shows up.
He said, can't you just get an annulment? Which I don't think anyone has said thus far. So I liked that.
Yeah, he does. He says y'all can just, she can just get an annulment of that marriage, and y'all can have another wedding. Everybody in town will come.
Everyone
It'll
in
be
harmony
wonderful.
would come.
Actually, it was really sweet the way he said it. I was like, yeah, TC's absolutely right. People would love to like celebrate Sam and Grace and renewing their marriage vows, basically, and having this
It
new
will
wedding.
be a great wedding, and everyone in harmony will show up.
But I feel like Sam kind of lets it roll off of his back. TC tells him, what you have to do right now is you need to find your wife, and you need to tell her she's the only woman for you, and that you love her more than any other woman. And he says, and be honest with your wife. I don't believe that your marriage can handle another lie. That's what he says. Sam's like, okay, yes, I'm gonna do that. But instead, goes back to Ivy's room.
Yeah, straight to Ivy's room.
I didn't understand that. He goes right to Ivy's room, goes and holds her hand and says, like, I'll be right back. And he tells Eve, I'm sorry, he uses Eve's like bad medical advice again, and he starts telling her, well, I love Grace, but you were my first love, and I've never forgotten you. How beautiful your eyes are. The twinkle in your eye when you smile. Yeah, all the fun times we've had, and the things we've shared. And he says, if it helps, I'll talk to you about all the love we shared.
Where's the harm in that? That's what he said. He said, where's the harm in that? I'll tell you what the harm in that, Sam, is. Grace overhears, and it really upsets her. That's the harm.
Yeah. So she's already overheard him talking about how he never stopped loving Ivy. Right? So I don't know. Ivy's okay. She seems like she's fine. Right? Like, do we need to do
is she
this
still
again?
at risk of death at this
For
point?
some reason, they're like, she won't wake up, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not fully understanding what's going on. It's just
I don't think it's accurate science.
It's certainly not. And it's just a reason to have Sam and Ethan and Ivy all be together and have Grace see it, right? So meanwhile, while this is going on between Sam and Ivy, Pilar and Eve give Grace very similar advice, like go find your husband, talk to Sam, you love him, he loves you, work things out together. So then she goes, but at this point, Sam has gone to find her, and she happens upon David, who's now in
Oh,
Ivy's room,
David has
telling
been so
Ivy,
annoying this episode.
yeah, he sucks. I can't stand this guy. He's telling Ivy, you have to fight for Sam. Wake
Mm-hmm.
up for Sam. You know, once you have Sam, then I can have Grace, basically. This upsets Grace. I don't know why this upsets her. She knows what his motives are.
Yeah, it's not new, is it?
At all. She knows what, I don't know why it upsets her. She says, you said you cared about me. I thought you cared about me. Why would you think he cares about you? You don't know this man. You don't know this man. Why would you think he cares about you?
He knows everything about her.
That sounds like a stalker. That sounds like a stalker, right? And so I wouldn't believe that my stalker cared about my well-being. You know what I mean?
A really
And
good, yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't believe that a man who has come into my life saying that he was my husband and wants me to be with him would be rooting for me to get back with my husband. Of course he's not rooting for that. Of course he wants Ivy to get with Sam so he can be with you.
He tried to kind of weasel his way out of it. He was like, no, if Sam really does love Ivy, then I want to give you love. I only love you, and I want you to be loved by someone that only loves you. So he tried to wiggle out of it a little bit, but wasn't very successful.
Yeah, that's what he said, and it made as much sense as it sounds. It does. It like it. It's so stupid. This whole thing was silly, pointless, because we're at the same place where we started. But
David was just hanging around with a coffee, earwigging to everyone and making snide comments. I also thought it looked like, I wrote down, does David have foundation on his lips? Like his lips looked like they were disappearing into his face. I thought I saw makeup. I thought they were trolling you 20 years ago.
I hope that it is makeup. I hope that it's a makeup problem, because that man truly, his face just goes flat across his mouth. And that's wild to me. I've never seen anything like it.
His lips are the same color as his skin.
Yeah, of like his jaw, like his
if they exist
chin.
at all.
He's like all chin and nose. It's weird. But yeah, he then it's just like badgering not Eve, what's this girl's name? Grace. He's breathing down Grace's neck for the next like 2 episodes basically. And
bringing up things he has no business bringing up.
None. Yes, and I was disgusted because he's like poking, he's kind of like poking at Grace about Ivy and how Sam and Ethan and Ivy are together, and that they're going to be a family together.
Odd. Are they all going to move into a house together with a grown son?
Right. She wants to find, she's like, I want to go find Sam. And he says, well, Sam's in there with Ethan and Ivy, and they're bonding as a family. The 3 of them are bonding as a family.
You might feel left out, Grace.
Exactly. He says, you might feel left out. And she says, well, actually, I'm happy for Sam that he has a second son. He has Noah, and now he has Ethan too.
That was nice.
It was. And she says, and I'm happy for Ethan too, that he actually has a father like Sam. I liked what Grace was saying. And then David, once again, this is not the first time this man has said this, brings up her miscarriage and says,
you're not thinking about Ethan. You're thinking about the baby that you lost. Did they know that was a son? I feel like it was very early on when
it was
Grace, experienced pregnancy loss.
Early.
Yeah.
It was very early. It was too early to know the sex, but Grace had made a big deal. Grace had made a big deal about it being a son.
Yeah.
For some reason, I remember that being so annoying.
How does David know all these details? Because they were not printed in the national magazine. How does he know all this shit?
loose lips sink ships.
Mm.
It was Grace's friends. It was Eve and Pilar and Hank. They all said, like, told David all of Sam and
As you
Grace's
would.
business.
As you would.
Like, yeah, well, if you're Eve, especially, and Pilar, frankly.
Yeah.
And Hank's an idiot, so he's gonna say whatever comes to his mind. But yeah, they all told him all of the gory details about these people's lives. So yeah, he brings up her miscarriage. It was just so, I was just disgusted because
Yeah.
you're trying to break her down. You're not trying to help her make her feel better. You're not trying to build her up. And not you're also not trying to make her like you. This is very unlikable.
Yeah, I'm going to have negative feelings towards you, David, when you keep talking about all this stuff that's so inappropriate. It's not going to make me warm to you.
And I also had a thought, and even though, so I've already thoroughly spoiled this this storyline. So I'm gonna
Good,
ask
because
this
I wanted
thought.
to talk about this. Yeah.
I have a thought. If Ivy hired David to
Mhm.
do all of this bullshit, what's David's end game with Grace? Like, does he take her away and then live with her? Or does he take her away and then, like, right now, I know it happens, but like, what was his idea of what the end of this job would be?
Well, I wrote down somewhere, is David in denial? Has David convinced himself? Because when he's sitting on his own talking to him about himself, he's saying, he's not your husband, I am. And there's no one around. Does David believe his own lies? Has he broken with reality?
Yeah.
The writers did us dirty there.
Yeah, I think maybe he's just method, and he's just like, he stays in the character
Yeah,
always.
maybe. I think he's convinced himself that he does love Grace.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, then that would make sense to what his end game would be, is that he does want to be with Grace, I guess. Okay. All right. It just doesn't make any, like, if you start this and you don't even know Grace, right? Like, when he started this job, he didn't actually know Grace. I wonder what the plan was. Like, what was
The plan was to get in, get out, get the money, but then he was just dazzled by Grace's. I'm trying to think of some qualities that might have dazzled him, but I'm coming up short.
The tomato soup cake.
Yes,
it's a
he
real
wants a
crowd
recipe,
yeah,
and that's something only a husband should know.
Yeah, he I guess that would make sense that he was gonna come in, break them up, and Sam would never go
But
back
he fell
to
in love
Grace.
with her. He accidentally fell in love with her. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know if we ever find out either.
Well, he keeps bothering her and telling her that, you lost your son because of Sam's lies.
Yes, yeah, which was not cool.
She talks about, she says, well, I can't help but think of how things might have been if that child had survived. I mean, girl, things would have been even more complicated. Like,
and I feel like she's allowing that. She should have shut that conversation down, but she's going with it. She's letting him intrude into her personal stuff and sharing her inner thoughts with him.
I feel like for me, I don't know, the minute my miscarriage comes up, it's like, what are you trying to do? I would be suspicious that you keep bringing that particularly painful thing up that you actually have nothing to do with. Stop bringing that up. But I don't know. So whatever. Grace,
it's not like, yeah.
Grace goes to find Sam, where Sam and Ethan are now in Ivy's room. So they had a really kind of interesting moment. They had a couple of interesting moments that I didn't hate, but definitely made me gasp. So
same all.
Yeah, so first of all, Ethan shows up and talks to Sam and says, I know that you'll never leave Grace for Ivy, for my mother, and don't worry, I know she's not trying to be with you anymore. She really gave you up.
So you can be relieved she's not trying to win you back anymore. He said something to that effect, which I thought was odd.
Yeah, and then a nurse comes in and gives Ethan, as her next of kin, gives him all of her personal effects that she had on her. And he pulls out that locket, which, if anybody remembers, there was a whole storyline around this locket, like episode 100 maybe.
The inexpensive locket?
where nobody could get the locket open. Ethan tried and tried and tried to open this locket, and he could not open it. And now he can just do it with ease, with relative ease. So
It
he
must have been
opens the
stuck
locket.
and it's been loosened and now
It's
it
so
works.
stupid. He opens the lock and he's like, yeah, my mother always wore this locket. As much beautiful jewelry as she's had, everything, she always wore this locket. And maybe she has been
Yeah.
still clinging on to the idea that the three of us could be a family. Um, and then Sam then tells Ethan about like how Ivy used to be when they were together. And it's like, I bet you didn't know your mom played field hockey and that she used to climb trees and she was such a
She
playful.
hid from me in a tree. How we laughed.
How we laughed when she fell on me.
The branch broke.
Yeah. And I mean, it was really sweet. It was really sweet.
It annoyed me because, he said Ivy was a star hockey player, and Ethan says, I remember Julian being really mean about it. But up until he idolized Julian, but now he remembers him being horrible to his mum. Anyway, I'm nitpicking now.
No, you're right. You're right. Nitpick. Ethan.
That's what we're here for.
Ethan deserves to be nitpicked. So,
well, can I nitpick him a bit more then? He also said to Sam, me and you are the two most important people in Mum's life. Again, justice for Fox, pretty and fancy.
You are, thank you, because that was like my next thing. It's like, he talks about being the most important two people. What about your siblings? Are you kidding? Yikes.
Even if you thought it, would you say it?
Yeah.
And has anyone notified Ivy's other children of her condition? That's what I want to know. Where are they?
None of them know. None of them
maybe
know.
Ethan is right.
Showed up.
They're not on the list. Or maybe they know and didn't show up. Yeah.
None of them showed up. And maybe none of them know. Yeah. I don't know.
I bet none of them know.
And it's just crazy because it's not like those three characters are characters that we know nothing about. Like, they don't necessarily tell us about the other three children, but they definitely make it clear that they have
put it out there from the start.
Yeah.
So they need to honor that in the storytelling.
And so the fact that they never, ever come up and Ivy only ever thinks about Ethan is so sad. It's so sad to think about. But yeah, so then Sam tells Ethan about Eve's idea that talking to her and making her feel like they're a family will maybe bring her back and wake her up. So Ethan goes over to Ivy and is like, hello, mother. It's me. I'm here. And I'm here with Dad.
Yeah.
Oh, I gasped. That was the part that made me gasp when he said, I'm here with Dad.
It was sweet. Did you notice that we dressed the same as well?
No.
They had the same outfit on. They had the same white shirt, one button undone, and jeans. I think it was a choice.
He called him Dad. And I did gasp because I just didn't expect it. It came out of nowhere for me. But it made sense. It makes complete sense.
It was sweet.
But it was
and then they all held hands.
Yeah, and then they held hands. And Sam says, yes, the three of us are together now, just like a family, just like you wanted. Yeah. Please come back to us. Oh, we love you. We need you. Oh, so
it was nice.
That's where we ended. You got anything to add to that?
No, just I've just written David is a bitch.
Yep.
And he like invited Grace on a date. He was like, we'll go for something to eat, we'll do this, I'll do whatever you want, Grace. I just wrote David is a simp, and that's the only other note I had on that. Yeah.
David is the worst. I'm so sick of him. And now that Brian's shown up, I'm gonna be doubly sick.
Oh, you're really not happy with Brian?
I'm really.
He's done nothing bad so far.
So far. I just feel the way I feel. So
okay, I respect it.
You know what? Again, I'm letting my past viewing color this current viewing. But I might rewatch this and feel differently. You know, I might as we watch more, I might feel differently about Brian. But
well, you think you're going to feel differently about Liz, and according to Doc, they are like an old married couple, so you might feel differently about Brian too.
I also thought I remembered that Liz had like a thing for Brian. Am I wrong about that? And
I think that was why they dropped that in. Yeah, Liz definitely has a crush on Brian, I believe.
Yeah, that's like part of the whole storyline with Sheridan, right?
Again, memory hazy, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
Uh,
think Liz
uh,
likes Brian. Although she was very putting it out there, wasn't she? Oh, it seems like you like this angel girl. Seemed like
yeah.
she was fine with him having romantic interests in another woman. Maybe
Yeah.
she's playing it cool.
She didn't seem jealous, but I felt like I remembered her being jealous, but maybe I'm completely wrong about that.
Would you
I
let
might be
someone
completely
stay
wrong
at
about
your
that.
hotel for free? I wouldn't if I didn't like them a lot. They
I
said
no, I
he
will
owes
say,
Liz money.
I will say, Brian ain't bad on the eyes. He's not hard on the eyes. He's
And
good
they
looking.
put the little cut off shirt on so we could see his arms
His rippling muscles.
from
He
hauling all those fishnets.
he does look good. Like real
I
good.
won't disagree.
Finger licking good. He does look very good. I will say that.
And that's not even enough to win you round.
No. No. Because I love Luis.
Yep.
I love Luis. Okay. So let's finish up. We're gonna finish up with magic. There's not much here, but there's a couple of good laughs. There's a couple
I
of good
thought
laughs.
I thought there was going to be no magic because there wasn't for the first few episodes, and I was devastated that I was going to have no Tabitha and Timmy to talk about.
Yeah, but Tabitha looked great. I loved her outfit, that pink and purple with like those weird patterns, and I love Tabitha. I love the
Who
costumes they
doesn't?
put her in, and she could pull them off. Like that shit would look crazy on anybody else, but it really works for her. She looks great.
I mean, I
So
know someone that's pulled off the Tabitha look.
thank you. I will say my Tabitha was very good. It was the best I could do on my limited budget, but thank
Tabitha
you.
would wear the outfit that you wore for Halloween. Just saying.
I think she would. I think, and I had my little Tim Tim.
Oh,
I decided to keep him.
I love it.
Keep him up here. Okay. So magic. Charity has told Pilar about her visions of her children. Pilar is like panicking. This is at the hospital before the Bermuda children come back. And that's that. Back at Tabitha's house, Timmy and Tabitha are like toasting their escape from the witch trials and from Norma and from the warlocks on Warlock Island. But Tabitha worries about, of course, Charity coming into her full powers. And then she sees that Charity is outside talking to Miguel, so they go outside to spy on them, right? So Charity is talking to Miguel, and she's very confused about her powers, and she wonders why she has powers, and she tells Miguel about how she stopped the storm. Again, this is all like recap. She's telling him about how she stopped the storm in exchange for something, and she thinks that something is giving him up. He says, "I'm not going anywhere, Charity. I'm not going anywhere." And she says, "But I made a promise." And he goes, "To a tree?"
Yeah, that was funny.
Rude, so rude. To a tree. And she goes, "I knew you wouldn't understand. Like I knew you didn't believe me." And so she kind of walks away from him, and he goes over to her and he says, "You know, whether or not you talk to a tree, disregard that entirely. I'm not going anywhere," is what he says to her. "And you're not going to get rid of me that easily." And he says, "Besides, you don't even remember what you promised. Maybe you didn't promise me. Maybe you promised something else. Maybe you didn't promise anything at all. Maybe you don't have to sacrifice a thing."
Maybe you
And
misunderstood the tree, I think he said. But I liked it when Timmy and Tabby were off having the side conversation. And Tabitha was like, "What is the most important thing in Charity's life?" And Timmy says, "Her NSYNC poster." And Tabitha says, "No, it's Miguel." And then Timmy said he doesn't like to think of her doing what you said with Miguel, which was making love, which I thought was sweet.
yeah,
And then I said, "Is Timmy a teenage doll? Is
Timmy's
his
got
crush age appropriate?" Yeah.
I think Timmy's ageless. I
Yeah.
think he's like an immortal, almost like an immortal being. Have you ever watched a show or a movie where there's like a man who's like 1,000 years old and he falls in love with like a 20-year-old, and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah, we
that's..."
just started rewatching Buffy the Vampire Slayer in this house. So yes, very
I've
much
never
so.
watched Buffy. I've never
Watch it.
seen it. Is it good?
Passions and Buffy actually reference each other.
I've seen the Buffy references in Passions, but I'm of course obviously I've never seen any Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like I've never watched it at all. I remember everybody used to love it, that and Charmed, but I never watched Buffy. I watched a
Charmed.
little bit of Charmed.
I recommend it.
Buffy or Charmed or both?
No, Buffy. Charmed is very, very silly. Buffy's actually, it's very good.
Okay.
It stands the test of time. Get through the first series is a little bit silly. Yeah. And Passions references galore. One of the vampires loves Passions in Buffy.
Is it the blonde one?
Yes, Spike.
I remember like some of the names, like Angel's in there, right?
Yes. So Angel is the old vampire that's been alive for 300 years that's in love with the 16-year-old vampire slayer.
Exactly. So that we'll take that for an example. Angel is, but we let it go because he looks young and he's like an immortal is like at a certain point. What does it matter if it's age appropriate? Like, right? Because he's like so old. Nothing's going to be age appropriate for him by our age.
Oh, that's standards. A good point. The scale resets. But Timmy did say for the short time Timmy's been on this earth. So this incarnation of Timmy, you know, she only created him a year or two ago.
Yeah, that's true. Timmy's a baby. Tim's a baby. Okay. So, yes, Charity is upset. She thinks she gave up Miguel. Miguel saying, I'm not going anywhere. He tells her to just push these negative thoughts out of your mind. Nothing's going to take me away from you. And then Charity's like, I have an idea. I know how I can figure out what I gave up. And Miguel's like, what is it? And then she turns to the tree in the yard and she's like, oh, mighty oak, please tell me, what did I give up on Warlock Island? If I can speak to trees on Warlock Island, why can't I speak to trees here? And so she's like,
flawless logic.
I mean, it's fair enough. She talked to one tree, why not another? So she's talking to the tree. Miguel is, oh my God, Miguel's just kind of standing there and he doesn't give it enough time. She says that she asked the tree to question. She's waiting for her answer. And he's like, see, it's not going to work. Like, it's fine, you know. And then the leaves on the tree start to rustle. And she's like, it's the tree. And so they sit and they listen.
There's no breeze.
And there's no breeze. Miguel's like, there's no breeze. And so she thinks it's the trees starting to talk to her, or the tree starting to talk to her. And then we do hear the tree go, Miguel. Miguel.
We hear the tree.
And we hear that.
Such a good
but Miguel doesn't hear it. Miguel does not hear the tree saying that. But Charity certainly does. And Tabitha and Timmy hear it too.
Yeah, they love it.
And so she's like, I knew it. It said you, Miguel. It said you. And Miguel's like, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear anything. I think their mind's playing tricks on you. You're just tired.
Classic.
He always told her she's tired. And she's like, no.
K?
Wait, what?
Our girl Kay enters the chat.
Yes. So Miguel doesn't believe her, and then Kay comes upon them and is like, what's going on, Miguel and Charity? And Charity tells her what's going on about, you know, the tree and that she thinks he has to give up Miguel. And she says, I have to give up Miguel. Kay says, what makes you think that? And she says, because I asked the tree and it said Miguel.
It whispered Miguel, she says. Yeah.
It whispered Miguel. I asked the tree and it whispered Miguel. And so she asks the tree again. She asks it again. Yep. And it says Miguel. But Miguel and Kay both like don't hear it. And both Kay and Miguel say you're not going to lose Charity. Because remember, Kay has decided that she's going to be good from now on.
Is being good.
Miguel's not worth possibly losing her family over.
Tabby and Timmy are very confused about this.
Tabitha's like, why is Kay trying to be so good? And then Kay goes inside and gets a newspaper, and she comes back screaming that Sheridan is dead. How did it get in the newspaper so damn fast?
Yeah, I'm struggling. It's still that same night, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not the digital edition. We know that much.
No, how did it get in the newspaper so fast? But anyway, it's in the newspaper. She says Sheridan's dead. Charity starts flipping out. She's like, I knew it. My premonitions came true.
What if all my
premonitions.
premonitions come true? I wrote bad acting all round on receiving this news, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Tabitha and Timmy at one point noticed that the basement door is not glowing anymore.
Ooh,
and there's no
can I just
smoke.
pause?
Yeah.
I need to point out that Miguel is a villain, because he said Kay doesn't even want, that's never going to happen. Kay doesn't even want me. Miguel knows that Kay wants him. And
right.
I didn't like that.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. He does. He even goes so far as to turn to Kay and say, ask her to co-sign that and say, right, you don't want me, right, Kay?
That
and
was
she's
not
like,
nice.
oh, no, of course not. Yeah, that was fucked up. And yes, I agree. Miguel is a villain. Everybody knows I can't stand him. He wasn't as bad this week as he has been in other weeks, but that's just because he wasn't on screen as much. But yeah, he did do that, and it was very sad. But it was, you know what? It was nice to see Kay, like, really sticking to, I'm gonna be good. Because again, she's building goodwill with me as an audience member so that when she turns bad again, I can be on her side.
I mean, I think it wouldn't take much from Kay to convince you. Like, I've been listening to you and Eric, and I'm like, what's going to happen this week? I'm not going to let these Kay apologists justify her bad behavior. But actually, I can't argue with her this week.
Yeah, no, she's being good.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, she's building goodwill with the audience because she's trying, and most people appreciate somebody who's trying to be good.
Well, it's giving her more dimensions. She's not just an out and out villain. We're seeing layers to Kay, which is going to make her more well-rounded, which is going to make us more likely to go with her. Unlike Charity, who has one dimension, which is why everybody except Timmy hates Charity.
You know what? To be fair, Charity has two dimensions. She's either...
Are you including zombie Charity?
One is...
unconscious.
Unconscious, or screaming about doom.
Yeah.
Those are her two levels. But, so... let's talk about the friends in the basement really quickly.
Yes.
At one point, Tabitha and Timmy noticed that the door isn't glowing. There's no smoke coming out. And Tabitha's like, that's a good sign.
Tabitha's far too cocky. We're out of danger. Yeah, Timmy says they're going to have a nice, normal life.
Yeah, she's like, that means Charity's probably not going to come into her powers. This is good for us. These are all good things. But later... they come back by the door and it's really smoking, and then it flies open, and the friends in the basement say, Tabitha, come downstairs and bring Timmy. And that's where we ended this week. So next week we should get a friends in the basement scene, which I'm pretty excited about. I like when she goes down and talks to them, and we don't see them, but they're like blowing at her and all the crap's going. So that's it for the week. You got anything to add before we wrap up?
That was it. All I have is I've created a segment of this podcast in my mind, which I have no business doing, which is called Burn of the Week. And the burn of the week, in my opinion, was when Pilar said she was going to neuter Julian like the dog that he is if he'd done anything to her. Teresita.
Listen, I'm going to have to take that and remember to do my burn of the week every week.
Well, I don't want to give you my work.
I'm taking it. I'll shout you out, though.
Rebecca was a nominee when she said Rebecca's was since when have you cared what anyone thinks? Besides, everybody hates you anyway, so what difference does it make if we get married? So she was the runner-up.
That's a good one. Zing and zing. So thank you. That's a great idea. I'm probably gonna use that next week.
But nothing would make me happier.
All right, so with that, Lisa, where can anybody find you? Do you want people following you on social media?
If you want to. So you can find me. I'm on YouTube at Make Everyday Looks. It's like a lifestyle channel, not very high production, just for fun if you're into that. And yeah, same on Instagram as well.
All right, I will link that in the description. And remember, you can follow Passions Podcast on all the platforms. Find a platform, choose, and find me there. Links are in the description on the link tree. And that's it. With that, You are my passion for life. I forgot to say thank you, Lisa. Thank you for being here this week. I should
Thank
have
you for
said
having
that.
me.
Thank you so much for being here this week. I faked everybody out. Thank you, Lisa,
Thank
for
you so
coming.
much.
You did a great job. The episode's going to be great.
Oh,
All right.
I feel like I was talking over you a lot. It's so hard on Zoom. I'm
No.
so sorry.
No, yeah, Zoom is tough, but yeah, no, you're great. So thank you very much
Aw,
for
thank you
being
so
here. Hopefully
much.
we'll
Thank
see
you
you
for having me.
again.
Oh, I'd love it.
All right. And with that, you are my passion for life.